My criminal record has been made public previously. The Pokemon related things I've gotten into are the cards, the show, and Pokemon Go. All things I can safely say I just joined in with. Especially Pokemon Go. Everyone had seemed to have played that game when it first released. It wasn't quite an Among Us level of literally everyone played it, but it got very close, and I got very hooked on it. I'd often leave the house at really odd times of day just because there was a raid happening. Point being, I'm well versed with the idea of Pokemon. I just never took the time to sit down and beat a real Pokemon game, partly because... I might as well get this off my chest now, but RPGs seem like the love it or hate it genre. For the longest time I was in the hate it camp. I knew they weren't bad games, and my opposition to them was purely preference, but they just drag. The fact that battles, even against low level opponents, rips you out of the game world and into a little mini game of sorts. The fact that that little mini game of sorts would take forever to initiate, only for you to tap A a couple times, get some XP and exit combat. But what's this? The exact same thing, just a few inches to the right. I found it very monotonous and generally avoided the genre. But despite this, seeing everyone lose their collective mind over the new Pokemon remakes makes me very curious about this very popular game franchise I've ignored. So it's time to expand my tastes by finally beating a Pokemon game. However, which one? I've heard countless people go on about how Generation 4 is the best, or how the Let's Go games are a great entry point for those unfamiliar with the Pokemon games. But I feel the most logical way to experience this franchise is from the beginning. Feel the full force of Pokemon in its most pure state, for better or for worse. Please enjoy my review of Pokemon Blue. First of all, I picked Blue simply at random. I went into this with the expectation that these games are very similar, if not the same, bar some pocket monster spawns, and that seems to be the case, so I picked Blue at random. Leading on from this, I had no intention of 100%ing it. No thank you. I've already put 21 more hours into a Pokemon game than I originally thought when this month began. Also, yes, I'm emulating it, and yes, this is in fact the Game Boy Color version. Instead of a black and white expanse, I'm treated to a slightly multicolored expanse, and a grey onyx. So with all my terms and conditions laid out, what do I think of the game? It's alright. I'll do you one better. It's great, but there were a handful of glaring issues that didn't go away for 90% of the playthrough. The Elite Four and all Elite Four related activities were definitely the highlights of the game, but we'll get there. The story of Generation 1 is a tale as old as time itself. Collect 8 gym badges and battle the Elite Four. You're given a starter Pokemon to, well, get things started, and the debate between which starter is best has destroyed civilizations, but allow me to settle it. Charmander is a boring lizard and Bulbasaur is literally just a plant. Squirtle is easily the coolest of the bunch, not only in terms of their final evolution, but if you're planning on taking the gyms in order, then you'll ease into the game a lot smoother. Or if you're like me and decide to level up your starter in the first patches of grass, then the entire game is a lot smoother. It's obvious this game intends you to level up your Pokemon through the trainers that are lined along the paths. The number of trainers and how much XP they give you seems to be how they've balanced the game. Only leveling up through trainers will keep your Pokemon at a level the game expects, and at a level the gym leaders are balanced at, giving you a challenge. They didn't account for some idiot having the patience to level up their starter using the first wild encounters. And I mean, I didn't even do it that much. I maybe increased Squirtle's level by 10, 15 at a stretch, but that meant I went the entire game only needing one additional Pokemon, and even then it was only for 2 of the 8 gyms. The other 6, Blastoise soloed without even flinching, which certainly took away from what otherwise would have been an intense fight. And as for that one other Pokemon, it was a Pidgeot, named Printer, as printers are boring, much like how this is literally just a bird. Whilst we're on the topic, most of the Pokemon designs look great, Gyarados and Blastoise being some of the highlights for me, but some of the designs were Ekans and Arbok, which were Snake and Cobra backwards and have the designs of snakes, which is a little boring. Regardless, the sprite work I found to be really well done across the board, even down to the moves. For what they had to work with, watching Pokemon attack is surprisingly satisfying. Moves like Hyper Beam and Rock Slide really get their power across. Moving back to the topic of EXP, despite how over-leveled my Blastoise was, I still found the journey of watching it level up and get stronger really satisfying and rewarding, which is what I feel this game does best. Watching your newly imprisoned wild animal grow into an unstoppable force of nature is great. Add in the fact that there are 151 Pokemon and you can only use 6 means the journey you go on feels a lot more personalised and more meaningful, and chasing more EXP to make your creatures even more powerful makes the near endless number of trainers almost bearable. This is where my inner RPG loather takes center stage. Basically, all the complaints about battling in RPGs are present. The length of time it takes to battle, the intensely repetitive nature of each encounter, the number of back-to-back encounters. I started off having fun with these trainer battles, however eventually seeing a row of trainers all lined up like soldiers was a dreadful sight to behold. Don't even get me started on caves and dungeon type areas. The monotony is unavoidable, plus you're lost. Easily the least enjoyable parts of the game. The rest of the experience though, each place you go feels unique and distinct, from the music to unique landmarks. I don't even remember half the names of the places, but I remember what they look like, or certain features of them. Like the place with a large Pokemon market, the place with spooky vibes, and the place with the Safari Zone. The music for Game Boy era is also pretty good. They really made the most of the limited number of bleeps and bloops they had to work with to make tunes, and they do a great job of conveying the atmosphere of each place you go to. Map progression in this game was handled in a way I didn't expect. I went into it with the expectation that you would just do gyms in a certain order, but no. You're free to skip a gym and come back later if you so please. Progression is done in the form of key items. Unlike gyms, you have to get these in a certain order to get anywhere, which means searching through every house and every building until you find it. Some items weren't a problem, like the Poké Flute, but the Sylph Scope in particular annoyed me. So, you travel to Lavender Town first. Logically, I assumed there was a reason for me being here, so I battled my way up the tower to find I couldn't go any further. No, instead you just skip through Lavender Town when you first reach it and travel left and come back later, making your first trip there completely useless. For context, what I liked about the Poké Flute was that you encountered the problem earlier on in the game, the problem being a giant sleeping teddy bear. So instead of continuing your adventure as planned, you take a different route, while still heading to the same destination. It's not a roadblock, it's merely a setback, a twist in the story, and you're not forced to backtrack and come back later. When you do gain the ability to move the Snorlax, you're travelling somewhere new, plus it shows just how far you've come in your adventure. The obstacles that once hindered you are no longer an issue. While it was a mandatory item to get, it merely felt like a useful tool for removing obstacles, and demonstrates this game's ability to naturally and seamlessly progress the story forward. The scope, however, it's basically telling you just wasted your time, go away and come back with an item. It didn't feel like a natural part of the journey like the flute did, and the entire Sylph Coast section of the game felt like unnecessary filler. The best items in the game I feel are the HMs, both through their implementation and use case. Fly and Surf do a good job of opening up the world. Fly especially was handy and a great late game reward. It wasn't required, but it opened up the world a lot and removed the obstacle of distance between places, making life a lot easier. On top of this, I did find myself getting lost a couple of times, as well as not knowing how to clear certain obstacles, the Sylph Scope being the worst offender. I did also use the guide to find Surf and Strength. I probably could have found them with more patience, but alas. I feel the game could have done a slightly better job of guiding the player. It takes you to battle all the trainers and reach the end of a given route to realise you've gone there too early. So overall, the Kanto region was a bit of a mixed bag. Had some really good aspects and some not so great aspects. Also, there was only one guy in the entire region that acts the way you'd expect after some kid literally breaks into your house. Alright, but what about catching them all? I didn't get close. I registered 50 unique species, and only because that was required for this game's EXP share. Going for unique Pokemon was a fun experience. I've always been into collecting things, so I did get some enjoyment out of doing it. The Safari Zone for that reason was a highlight of the game. It gave off very primitive Pokemon Go vibes, with the inability to weaken Pokemon and the use of bait to make them easier to catch. However, after I reached the 50 unique species requirement, I didn't feel a desire to get any more. Much like the battling, it started getting really repetitive, and the more I got, the less chance of finding something new there was, so I just continued what I had. Needing to change boxes when one got full, as well as the fact there are multiple boxes, got annoying, as I forgot where certain Pokemon were, and finding a Pokemon and not being able to catch it was incredibly annoying. And it was for those reasons that I just gave up on collecting new species. Add in the fact that you have to first deposit a Pokemon before withdrawing one, making the whole thing a little clunky. You can't just swap them. And the menus for the PC were a little clunky as well. The whole catching them all experience for sure needed some streamlining. I say needed, as I'm aware this game is 23 years old with 2 remakes, so I get criticizing this game is pointless on 2 fronts. But these are just my raw, unfiltered impressions of the game. So far, the game was a fine 5 out of 10 experience. The process of watching my imprisoned creatures grow was what kept me playing for the most part. Collecting Pokemon started off really fun, but then the previously mentioned issues with the game were there to remind me at every step of the journey, which took a fair bit from the experience, but just as I thought that was it, the game got really good. The Elite Four the first time around really caught me off guard. The rest of the game was very easy, so I expected the same here, and for my ignorance I was severely punished. And even after a few more tries I still didn't get anywhere, so it was finally time to address the lackluster team. Sometime later, here's the still incomplete team. I got really fed up with grinding when I got to my Dratini, so I just left it. However, the Elite Four, even with this new team, took a couple tries, and because of this there was genuine tension with each fight. The fact that the RNG could decide my last 2 Hyper Beams would miss made each move that was thrown a suspenseful moment. These final 4 battles required actual preparation and strategy. You could no longer ignore type advantages, and you needed to think carefully about what Pokemon you sent out first. Needing a full team of decently leveled up Pokemon was a huge requirement, as leveling up one high enough took a lot of time. Plus you needed a diverse enough team to handle all 4 trainers back to back. You're finally heavily encouraged to use every aspect of combat this game has to offer. So when you finally deal the killing move on Lance's Dragonite, the culmination of everything you've done in your journey, you get overwhelmed with feelings of satisfaction, momentarily making all the annoying and clunky parts of the game worthwhile. The Elite Four left a really strong impression and shows the heights this game or this franchise is possible of through things like the combat, watching your Pokemon level up. It all culminated here. While I entered this experience an outsider, it's pretty safe to say that now I'm a fan. While this game did have more than its fair share of substandard parts, in the end the good did somewhat outweigh the bad. This was Pokemon in its purest after all, and the concepts on show make me really want to see whether or not the future games put them to good use.